Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast. We are on episode 123. And I actually thought to myself before we came on, the next time we will be on a sequential episode like this will be episode 1234, which will be in about, if we're still going, it will be in about 5 years' time.
Will it not just be episode 234?
No, you got to start with one.
Have you?
Start with one. It's got to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So next time it's going to be about a long time in the future. So we're episode 123. Episode.
That's actually quite topical because we will need our guests by that point.
Yes, we will. We'll explain that in a minute. All will become clear. All will become clear. So episode 123. We are also. This is our very first episode of 2023. So happy new year to everybody. Welcome to another year on planet Earth, another year with the Health Oddity podcast. And I will start, before introducing our guests for today, by introducing our regular hosts and see how they're doing. If you're watching, they are both wearing beanie hats because it is cold in the UK on the 6th of January, 2023. How are you doing, Mr. Peter Lant?
I'm great. I'm wearing my hat because I've been out for a walk with a dog. It's a glorious day today. It's one of those days where there's loads of frost, but where the sun's hit, it's defrosted and all that sort of stuff. So the ground frost that has stayed, but it's still really warm when you're in the sun. So it's fantastic. So we just walked. It was really nice because we walked through Bath. And it's cold with all the buildings around because the sun's really low. But as soon as you get out into the meadows and stuff like that, it's really warm. It's been fantastic. And the only reason I've kept my hat on is because my hair will look ridiculous underneath it. The hair on the top of my head, not the hair on my chin, which just looks ridiculous anyway, but I'm cool with that. But yeah. And I'm looking forward to this because our guest, like I've alluded to, I'm now officially in my late 40s. I'm the wrong side of 45.
So how old are you now? Are you 46?
I'm 46 now, yeah.
Well, so you're still mid-40s, sure.
Yeah, but it's over mid-40s, isn't it? But anyway, we'll need this because it's quite funny because I think as soon as I turned 40, I started getting brochures for like sheltered accommodation and holiday homes abroad and all that for people. Like, you know the ones you get with discounts. There's like discounts for people to buy. They've got
the browsing history.
And the stair lifts and
not quite
mobility aids. No,
not quite that just yet. But as soon as I hit 40, so for the last 6 years, I've been getting stuff for this sort of stuff. So it'll be interesting.
Anyway, Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you doing?
Well, it was pretty amazing New Year's Eve, wasn't it? The global events that happened. It's left us all in shock, hasn't it?
I wouldn't say that because something might happen and we haven't got a clue what
I'll be like Nostradamus.
I'll edit that bit out.
I'll be like Nostradamus.
We can say loads of things now that we think might have happened.
One of them will be true, won't it?
Exactly.
No, let's not play
just
this
by
game.
chance. You're a superstitious man, James.
I'm not superstitious. If there's a massive, terrorist attack on New Year's Eve,
you're going to blame us on the Health Oddity.
Going to blame you, yeah. Anyway.
I'll get someone.
We'll edit this whole section out.
Anyway. The entire section that I'm talking.
Anyway, enough of this New Year's joviality, if that's even a word. Joviality, I think, is one. Joviality is a word. Yeah. Okay.
Jollity.
Maybe our guest can tell us because she's a bona fide writer, so I'm sure her vocab is going to be far exceeding ours. Anyway, we are joined today all the way from Weston-super-Mare, which our international listeners will have no idea where it is, nor did I actually. From Weston-super-Mare by Becky Fuller. How are you doing, Becky?
Good, thank you. Yeah, very good.
Excellent. And just before I pass over to Becky to give us a full kind of backstory, I've known Becky kind of for a while, various courses that I've attended where Becky's attended as well. Strong First, kind of kettlebells, level 1, level 2, barbell course. You know, we're connected via social media and all the rest of it. And but one of the reasons why I wanted to get Becky on is because she'll kind of go into more detail, but she is writing currently for Saga, which I think is Saga worldwide, or is it just a British thing?
I think that their insurance and travel is British, but I think that the brand is kind of known worldwide.
Okay.
I think.
It's basically like, writing health and fitness content for Saga, which is a 50 plus kind of organization, I suppose. I'm not really sure how I'd categorize it, but I'm sure Becky will tell us more about it as we go. But welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, Becky.
Thank you.
And welcome and congratulations on being our first guest of 2023. So you're kicking off the new year for us, which is fantastic. Yeah. It is fantastic. I'm telling you. Okay. So Becky, do you want to just sort of tell us a little bit about yourself, really, about your background, about your what you do, about your career, about your training, about just give us the backstory, really, and then we can kind of dive in and find out more as we go, if that's okay.
Yeah. So I've always kind of had two strands to my career. On one side, I've worked as a freelance journalist, mainly around comic book movies and theatre. So I wrote for a very long time for Screen Rant, which is quite a well-known film and TV website. And I did that while my children were small and still at home. Oh, Siri's just set off. And then when my youngest was 4, so he's 13 now, I decided that I wanted to lose some weight and get a little bit fit, and that was kind of where I approached it from. I bought a DVD and I did it at home. And
what was the DVD?
It was 21 Day Fix, which is a Beachbody DVD program, which is quite big in America. And it went from there. So then I did sort of another DVD and then another, and then I did Insanity, which you may well have heard of. And I loved that. So at the time I was working as a social media manager for our local hospice, and one of my workmates said, you should teach classes, because my degree is in theatre, so I'm kind of happy to perform. And he said, you should go and qualify and teach classes. So first of all, I qualified as an Insanity instructor, and I taught that. And
what's the guy's name again? The guy who does Insanity? I can't remember. It's something with a letter after it.
Sean T.
Sean T. That's it. It. Yeah, Sean T. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I taught that just, as an extra, and I just found a real affinity with teaching groups of women. And I was doing kind of basic weights at home, and I thought, I'm going to go and qualify to be a personal trainer so that I can teach women how to be strong. Because what I'd found was that although I'd lost some body fat, the actual transformation, it was much more of a mental transformation for me and a new way of looking at life completely. And then once I found the weights, once I found strength training, that was when everything began to change. And I just wanted more women to be aware of that. So qualified as a PT, and then I've been working as a personal trainer, fitness instructor, found the kettlebells, found Strong First, which sort of led me down that path. And so for the last 3-4 years now, 4 years, I've been female focused personal trainer for women, doing strength training and kettlebells, and then kept the freelance journalism on the side. So fast forward to like this year, last year, because we're now in the new year.
2022, but yeah.
Well done. Well done.
I'm sure no one's picking anything up. Don't worry. Continue.
Yeah, so it got to like September and I saw this job advertised, and I don't know if you've ever had a thing where you just look at it and it's like, that's me. That's just me. And I thought I need to apply for this. I wasn't necessarily looking at changing careers or going into anything different, but it was just there and everything aligned, because it was writing, which I love, which is my big passion. It was fitness focused, which is my other big passion, and it was focused on the over 50s. And just through pure coincidence, my client base as personal training had gone more and more into the over 50s, to the point where I only had 2 people who were under 50. So I'd found a real kind of love and affinity of helping. I hesitate to say older people because I'm 42, so I'm not that far off. 50 is definitely not old, but helping people kind of discover strength training later in life. So yeah, I applied and got the job, and I'm absolutely loving it. So
fantastic. So I was going to say, so how old were you when you first got that, just to get some kind of idea on timescales, when you got that first DVD, that kind of 21-day shred or 21-day, whatever it's called? How old were you when you started doing that?
I was 34. So I was always fit because I'd done a lot of dance, and I used to play hockey and run cross country and stuff at school, but it just tailed off, as a lot of women, it happens to a lot of women when they start having children and your time is compressed, your time for yourself, and you're more focused on family and trying to hold down a job and run a home and everything. So yeah, I was 34. And
I think that's a way that a lot of people, a lot of women certainly, who are very, very busy, like you say, career, home, children, that kind of online, or well, it wasn't online at the time, because I remember back in the days of VHS and stuff, but VHS or DVD, fitting exercise in around the home. I mean, my mum, I remember, was a single mum, probably 30 years ago, used to have like I think it was like Rosemary Conley or something back in the day, like a VHS, and they pop it in, it's like a 20-minute workout and you do it at home, and that's kind of, but it's really interesting how that you kind of, I suppose I was going to say it's like a gateway drug, you know what I mean? You kind of, how you kind of move from the DVDs at home, and then you went more into the hard stuff, you kind of went into the insanity and the Shaun T, and then the strength training, and then the strong first, and you gradually progress through the through the exercise narcotics, as it were. Okay. So Pete, were you going to say something? I think I cut you off earlier. Were you good?
No, I was interested in, because I think I don't know whether a lot of this will go it'll cross over to what we spoke to Vicky Causer about as well. But you were saying you were doing the insanity stuff and all that, and you absolutely loved it, and you became an instructor and everything. But then you started to do strength training, and that's when, and you said everything began to change then. So I was just wondering what you meant by that, because obviously there's getting fit and stuff like that, but and as we know on this podcast, like, strength training is really good for many, many benefits that people don't seem to realize. They just go out and get fitter and lose weight, which is where you said you started. So I just wanted to know what began to change.
The feeling of empowerment, I can only speak from a female perspective, but picking up a heavy kettlebell or a bar or a heavy set of dumbbells and pushing them overhead or lifting them up off the floor or something just gives you an overwhelming sense of empowerment and like, I can do this. So if I can do this, I can do anything. And the strength training kept me going the whole time. When my marriage fell apart, that kept me going, because I knew, well, if I can do hard things. And it became less about, because I didn't have a massive amount of weight to lose. I lost about 10 pounds. But the reason I started was because I didn't like my thighs, and I was still the same shape from all the cardio. But then when I started strength training and I physically began to shrink, but not losing weight, and I ended up with, what to me was my ideal physique. You feel better in yourself because you feel like you look good and things fit well. So you feel better in yourself, you carry yourself differently, you become more confident, and then you're just lifting really, really heavy things, and you just think, yeah, look at me. It is, I always say, I try and help women to become strong in body and mind. And I think that's what strength training does. That's the change.
Excellent.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, when you, it's kind of, I think, a common kind of route into exercise that women's, and I can't remember who we had on the podcast recently. We're definitely having this conversation whereby it might have been Vicky Causey, where and I actually saw this recently. I went to for the first time in years, I went to a kind of a mainstream leisure centre gym when I went to Norfolk the other weekend. And I went in there, and it was one of these gyms where you've got a big line of treadmills, a big line of cross trainers, a big line of bikes, 4 or 5 rowing machines, and then a kind of a weights area. And I saw quite a lot. I only went in there 2 days in a row, but often you'd get couples come into the gym, all varying ages of couples. And it was really noticeable that the female, if they're a mixed sex couple, the female would come in and go to the cardiovascular equipment and go on the cross trainer, and the man would take himself off into the weights area, and then kind of at the end of the workout, they'd both kind of get together and walk out the door together. But they literally walked in together. One goes to the cardio, one goes to the weights. And I think that's kind of still, because I hadn't seen that for years, because I've just operated in a different environment in my own gym and other gyms I've gone to, more sort of, I suppose, gyms, the kind of places that we go to for courses and things that are a bit more focused. But I was actually quite surprised that was still a thing, that women go to the gym and do cardio, men go to the gym and do weights. And it's often said that, women need to train a bit more like men and men need to train a bit more like women, so they kind of, you get more of a balance. But that's quite common, isn't it? Like you said, you started with that cardio thinking, I just want to lose weight and get smaller, I suppose, and then you'd lost weight, but then realized there's going to be more to this. I can't just do cardio,
Yeah. And I agree with you. I worked as a fitness manager in a local charity gym where I was doing my classes as well. And that is what happens, that generally the treadmills are taken up by women and the weights are taken up by men. We, through Strong First, how many women are into the strength training game, and we kind of train in different types of gyms. But yeah, it's still broadly out there. And then what I find is training women over 50. I get clients coming to me in their sort of 70s, and they're like, well, I just feel really unfit. But they're not unfit. They just can't keep up because they are of the cardio mentality. And the importance of strength training for women is just it's just vast, absolutely vast, at all stages and all ages, but especially as you get older. And I really, that's part of what I want to do in my job, is really make a broader audience aware of the importance of strength training.
That's interesting, because we had Mike Sousa on however many weeks ago it was.
probably about 3 weeks ago now.
Yeah, but anyway, we had him on, and he's do you know of Mike Sousa?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've seen him. He's a big. He was at the level 1. I don't know if you were at that or not. Anyway, he was He's a big geezer, could look scary, but he's not. And it seems like he trains mainly women in their 50s, 60s, 70s. He was talking about, and he was talking about the the kind of central nervous system keeping you safe. And he said Brett Jones had an analogy, which was like a car alarm that goes off if you just if you just walk past it, the car alarm goes off. It's like no, the danger. And I don't think it's just women. I think a lot of men of certain age, of certain age, I'm going to say, I think, feel that way. They feel like if I'm going to put something heavy above my head, or I'm going to lift something heavy off the ground, or whatever, I'm going to hurt myself. And it's like, yeah, but you can do that progressively over time. But if you haven't been doing that, and then you've got to a man or a woman in their 50s or 60s, you can still do it safely, and you can still build strength and maintain muscle and all of that. And I think when you start using terms like strength and muscle, then Brett Jones spoke about this. He said you start to get this image in your head of bulky people on Instagram lifting weights. And you're like, well, I don't want to look like that, and I don't want to be like that. And it's like, well, that won't happen. You know what I mean? So how do you explain that? How do you get around that? Because that's kind of a barrier to people, isn't it?
Yeah. So with a lot of older clients, they come to me and they're sort of saying, I can't get up and down off the floor anymore. I can't get down to play with my grandchild, or I can't lift my grandchild up, or I can't reach this or whatever. I had one lady who said to me that when she cleans the glass shower panes, she can't go down the bottom. So there's sort of this line of soapy water down the shower panes. And the way I always explain it is, I'm like, when you say strength training, you think of lifting weights in a gym, but actually it relates so much to everyday living.
Yes.
So, I need you to be able to squat, because I need you to be able to get up and down and in and out of the car, or up and down from a chair or whatever. I need you to be able to reach overhead, because you can get things out of cupboards, or, lift things from the floor, grandchildren, and so on. And once you kind of make that connection to the everyday life, and really, that's the same with men and women, and really whatever age, you can always relate it back to some form of everyday living, I think.
Yeah,
So,
that's interesting. It's kind of like, what do you struggle with? Well, I struggle with this very normal thing day to day. Right, it'll help with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we often say on the podcast that, I've mentioned it a few times. I know that because of the people that we talk to week in, week out, and the conversations that we have and the circles we move in, we're almost, I've said before, it feels like you're in a little bit of an echo chamber, and you really feel that, well, everyone knows this stuff. Everyone does this stuff. The world is changing out there. Everyone's aware of strength training. But it really did hit me that at that public gym a couple of weeks ago, that actually, Christ, things haven't actually changed that much. The vast majority of corporate, commercial, big, local authority gyms, whatever, it's still that way that I kind of thought we'd moved away from. So I think what's really interesting now is you having this new role, writing for Saga. You're going to be writing to people who are totally, out of this echo chamber, and, the general public, and maybe people who don't do any exercise at the moment, or probably most of them, if they do, who are still in that kind of old, gender stereotype of, women do cardio, men do weights, or and that sort of thing. So what kind of, I know you've already started, putting pen to paper, although I know you don't do it that way anymore. But you've started writing things already for Saga. Are you going to sort of write it as a progressive series of articles, or do you cover a different topic each week, or what's the format going to be to actually start to, because this is actually really interesting, where you're going to get the opportunity to speak to and to educate people who are not in this world at all, aren't you?
Yeah. So when we launch, there's going to be a mix of kind of progressive series, and then sort of articles reflecting what people are looking for. The generation that we're looking at now, like 50 plus, they're really kind of tech savvy. You know, if you look at us, none of us are that far off it. We're all sitting on a podcast, but if you went back 20 years, somebody of 50 wouldn't have had a clue. You know, people are much more switched on. They want to know, if I buy this smartwatch, what will it do for me? So there'll be those kind of reviews and guides and stuff like that. And there's going to be a mix of articles, for people who are already out there doing stuff. So people who are running, people who are walking, people who are into yoga and things like that. But then there's also going to be a lot of kind of deep dives into different ways of working out and things like that. So we're trying to form like cornerstones, and one of the cornerstones will be menopause, around the menopause. So, you know, that instantly sparks off so many different things. You know, how will I change in the menopause? How will that affect my exercise? Should I start strength training? Yes. That's
Is that a rhetorical question?
Word.
Yeah.
Always yes, isn't it? It's just no way around it. You could say, yeah.
And you know, different things like that. And then lots of articles around kind of, you know, blood pressure and diabetes and things like that. You know, can type 2 diabetes be reversed? People who go to their doctor are very often just told, well, you are type 2 diabetic, or you're bordering on it, lose some weight. But you're not given sometimes you're given a voucher for Weight Watchers or what Slimming World or whatever it is in your area, but you're not kind of given helpful, constructive advice. And I well, not just me, but the editors really want our site to kind of be a lot of people's first port of call for new knowledge. So for me, as the fitness writer, you know, I want to be kind of a strong voice in that area where people are like, oh yeah, I know she writes good stuff, she knows what she's talking about, and so they'll kind of gravitate towards that and get good information and accurate information from us.
Is this like a new? I don't know that much about Saga because I don't need to. I just know
yet,
and this is going to sound horrible, Saga's for old people, right? That's but that's what a lot of people will think, right?
Yeah.
Which it's not if it's over 50s, because I'm like, that's me in 4 years' time, you know what I mean? So, but it's been around for a long time. So is this kind of like a new kind of direction? Because what's just sprung to mind to me as well is that I've got a headline for you as well, by the way, for an article which will be great. But I'll give it to you later.
Okay.
It's suspense for the listeners. You see, they'll want to listen to the end now.
It's not similar to your gym where you punch meat, is it?
No. It's totally different. That's a different demographic. I've lost my train of thought. No, so when we were speaking to Vicky Causa, right? So I don't know if you're aware of her. She's got real strong women, is what her business is called, because they're real women and they're getting stronger. Like that's basically, that does what it says on the tin. And she was saying, you know, some of the stuff she sees for women of a certain age. I don't know what age, but it's all. She said like there are classes for like over 50s. Where it's basically just stepping up and down off a step and swinging your arms around and all of this sort of stuff. And she said we've moved on since that, like the Rosemary Connolly stuff and the Mr. Motivator on the telly and Lizzie Webb and the Green Goddess and all of that. Just to prove that I am the age I am. But that's changed, hasn't it? So is this like a new direction for Saga, or because like I said, I don't know the past really.
Yeah, so Saga have been around for years and years. I can remember having a really good laugh because my mum was eligible for Saga. You know, she's kind of mid-70s now. But they started out offering cruises and insurance, basically car insurance, travel insurance, and so on. And then they launched Saga magazine, which you subscribe to and get sent out, you know, like an actual physical magazine. And yeah, they've kind of changed their structure a little bit and their leadership and stuff, and they're launching Saga Media because people are online now, and the biggest consumers on like Facebook, biggest consumers of video content on Facebook are 55 plus. So they're the ones who will watch the kind of long form video content on Facebook and YouTube, possibly because they've got time, possibly because they feel more comfortable with a long form video as opposed to a short TikTok clip. I don't know, but you know, that they're very, very vocal on Facebook. They're nearly all on Facebook, and it's just, you know, we are changing the way we consume our media as a global population anyway, but specifically that age group. And Saga have always, like you said, most people sort of go, oh, it's for old people. Generally speaking, it's kind of been 70 plus who have gravitated around that name, unless you want cheap car insurance, you know, and then you're like, oh, I'll go with whoever because they're the cheapest. So yeah, we're trying to sort of, you know, bring in that age group, because 50 just is not old. At 50, most people are still working. You might have children who are older. You might have adult children, but you might have teenage children or children who are just entering into the preteen years. But you're by no means old, and so we want to kind of encapsulate a broader range.
There's a member of my gym called Ray Moore. I'll give him a little shout out. And years ago, I remember how old is he now? I think he might be 69 at the moment. But he's been a member of the gym since he was in his 50s. So, probably about 13 or 14 years. And I remember him telling me once, he was sat in the GP's office and he was reading it. This is how he said he knew he was getting old. He was sat in the GP's waiting room, just, you pick up a magazine, reading a magazine, and he was really into it. He thought, God, this is a great magazine. There's loads of articles. I really like this. And then he realized he was reading the Saga magazine. And then he was like, right, that's a sign that I'm getting old.
Was it like an advert for them, like a pair of slippers that you can pay off, like in monthly installments? Like, oh, they look comfy.
It was probably it was probably something about classic cars, and then something about holidays, and something about, and he said, and he was really into it, and he thought, this is a great magazine. I wonder what this is. And when he turned it to the cover, and it was the Saga magazine, he thought, now I know I'm getting old. But
I'm just wondering whether or not we're going to get to the stage where in old people's homes, everyone's singing Prodigy. Because I mean, when you think about,
that's Peter Kay, isn't it? You're going on about.
Yeah.
Put a bit of Smack Your Bitch Up on for your grandmother.
yeah.
But this is brilliant, though. This is really interesting, because what is great is what you've just said, is that Saga are kind of rebranding themselves to say, no, we're not that. Because like there's lots of things there's lots of, I don't know, organizations or whatever you want to call it, and brands that will stay where they are and just encompass people as they get even older. Rather than saying, do you know what, we actually are still for over 50s and time has changed in the last 20 years. So
because I think and I thought this long before I even went for the interview or applied to the job even, kind of, my mum's mid-70s. When I think of what my grandma was like in her mid-70s, it was very different. Probably by the time I get to my mid-70s, it will be very different again, because times are changing. The way we age is changing. And I think that there's an appetite out there. I don't think that people necessarily want to deny the aging process, but they just kind of think, well, it is just a number. It's just an arbitrary number. It's more about how I feel. And I don't want to feel old. I don't want to be sedentary and whatever. People are kind of embracing life a bit more. Maybe I don't know, but
like you said as well, I think people now, I know there has been a real shift, and it's this kind of around the kind of population as well, whereby people are, the age that many people are having children is getting later, isn't it now? In general. So a lot of women maybe now would have children at you know, late 30s, 40, early 40s, even into mid 40s. And then obviously when you're 50, you've still got someone of primary school age, you know, as a child of primary school age. And that's kind of myself and Steph, you know, we had kids, you know, a bit later. So you're going to know that when I'm 50, I'm still going to have, how old will Xander be? He'll be about 10, you know what I mean? So
yeah, but James, when you're 50, you're still going to be playing with toys. Like little I mean, look at behind you.
I know.
But isn't there an elephant in the room, which is, on one hand, we have this perception that, you know, 50 isn't old. But actually, if we look at the demographics of our country and certainly any the kind of westernized countries, you know, the level of morbidity and ill health over the age of 40, 50 is so high. So on one hand, we have this kind of idea that I feel young, you know, 50 is young, 60 is young, you know. We have people 66 or 60, 70% of our population is either overweight or obese, and therefore dealing with things in a way that our grandparents' generation never did. I mean, you look at pictures of our grandparents in 20 and you think you're not 50 in that picture because of the way you're dressed. You know, people look younger now. People have better hair. They have access to different kind of ways. Well, I know none of us have that. Stop showing off here. But at the same time, we have people who are more sedentary. You know, they want the trappings of life. They want to go on cruises. They want to go on holidays. They want to go on all those things. But then their body's falling into disrepair, and all of the consequences of that. Yeah, we need insurance because you might be needing help. You know, so this is what I think. You know, it's easy. On one hand, we've got the marketing. It's like, hey, everyone's young at heart, blah blah blah. But you know, do you have a young heart? Quite literally, you know, because it could fail at any moment unless you take care of yourself.
I think what you're saying there, Paul, is really, again, it's another example of us being in this kind of echo chamber with the people we talk to and the way that we are. We all four of us on this call are in our early to mid 40s to late 40s. Sorry, Pete. We're in our early to late 40s, but we all exercise regularly. We all train. We all are mindful around what we eat, and you know, mindful around sleep and all these things. But I think you're very right that that's not, even across my kind of friendship group of people I went to school with who are the same age as me. Most of them, you know, aren't particularly healthy and don't do exercise, and so I think you're right there. I think that's and that's possibly who Becky will be writing for, I presume, because it's not going to be it's probably not going to be the people who consume a lot of fitness and health content on social media and you know, on media and stuff. I suppose it's going to be the everyday person, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one of the articles that I'm putting together at the moment, it sounds really basic, but it's just a review of like the best leggings out there. Now, if I wanted to buy a pair of leggings, I know what I'm looking for. I know the brands that I like, and I know where I'm going to go. If somebody in their 60s who is extremely unhealthy and perhaps overweight and very self-conscious and whatever wants to buy a pair of leggings, they're not going to Google Sweaty Betty leggings or Nike or, you know, whatever. They're going to take themselves to their local Marks and Spencers, or they're going to pick some up when they're shopping at Tesco's or, you know, wherever. And it is kind of looking at that angle of like, well, how, and you do have to take that into account. How would I approach this if I knew nothing about the situation? And so, you know, that's just like one example, but another example is, you know, one of the things I've written is about walking. Kind of, you know, this is where you could start if you've done nothing, but you've suddenly had a wake-up call. So say the GP has said you're borderline diabetic, or you've had some kind of heart scare, or you're on blood pressure medication or something. Where do I start? What do I do? Well, look, actually, get yourself outside just for a few steps a day. Because as you say, broadly speaking, there are a lot of people out there who need the help. And I've seen firsthand the difference that me just working with one client can make, you know, somebody in their 60s who is so unfit and so unhealthy that they can't get up and down from a chair without getting severely out of breath. You see the difference that it makes gradually as you kind of introduce more and more into their life, and it changes their whole life. Yeah, I just want a chance to do that on a bigger scale for more people.
Yeah, and I think that kind of we've spoke about this before on the podcast, that, and again, we're probably on this podcast we're kind of preaching to the converted a lot of the time, because people who are listening to a podcast called Health Oddity are already interested in that or want to find out more about that. But there's still only I think it's less than 13% of the population of the UK who engage in, gym, health club, exercise classes, strength training, whatever, like purposeful exercise, is still only sort of 13%, so there's that huge, and that's the thing, isn't it, that to tap into probably something like what you're going to be doing, writing for Saga, gives you the, like you say, the reach and the outreach and the possibility of talking to people who none of us, who this podcast will probably never talk to, because they, wouldn't want to sit and listen to, a few people sit around for an hour talking about exercise, So I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And like you say, you're going to have to write very differently because it's all the stuff that there's this thing, isn't there? This assumed knowledge. You're talking to someone and you think, well, this is too basic, or I'm being condescending or patronizing by talking like this because everybody knows this, where actually most people don't, So yeah.
That's what I was about to say. Something similar is people are on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They see things, they know that gyms are there, they know that podcasts like this are there, but this might be a bit much for them, or joining the gym might be a bit much for them, or what people say on Facebook, like, or Instagram or on social media is a bit too much right now. But then reading a magazine that says, go and do aerobatics, as my dad used to call it, aerobics, all that, like go and do, what's it, like swim, what do they do? The, water aerobics and all that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? And then people will say, yeah, but no, because I can do more than that, but I can't quite do that. And it's just somewhere right in the middle for them. And I love that, because I've kind of changed my message recently back to weight loss again. Because I used to hate talking about weight loss because it can make people feel really bad, but that's what people are after. And it's really hard to get across to someone, strength training, brilliant, just do that. And then, like I say, they immediately think of someone who's ripped and all that, and they're like, that's never going to be me. So it's like, right, lose half a stone in a month or 2 months or whatever, because you have to put a time on it as well, don't you? Which I hate doing, but that's what people want. And then if you can bring people in on that and then get them to understand the nuances behind it, that is brilliant. But so how will you do that, do you think, for Saga? Because obviously the articles, there'll be like find some leggings, which is great, but you can't write articles about that all the time, can you? And like, will you have some that are a bit more in depth, some that are a bit more kind of surface level, and then try and sprinkle them through just to get people on the right days, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, and we want a good mix of, I mean, you'll all know, but fitness extends far outside of like doing this exercise. It's kind of, you've got mental wellness, you've got good sleep, you've got nutrition and stuff like that. And so it's introducing those topics in a way that doesn't overwhelm somebody. You want somebody to go onto a website and think, oh yes, this is for me. You don't want them to walk on and go, oh no, that's too much, it's too much. And we are lucky we've got the brand name that kind of attracts that audience anyway. It's a known name, but if they can log on to, they want to find out something about taking statins, for example, and they can read an article about that explains it at a basic level, but then can point them in the direction of, well, look, actually, you know, these exercises could help with that. And if you want to eat this way, or if you wanted to lose weight, try this, and whatever. If there's a lot more kind of articles out there, it's explaining stuff in a way that is simple and clear, but not patronizing, because people don't want to be spoken down to, but especially when they're older. There's kind of sometimes this mentality, isn't there, of speaking to older people as if they're stupid, and they're not. So yeah, it's having a broad mix. They can land on one article, but then they see all these others around it that are relevant.
I think that's brilliant, because I do think it's kind of a forgotten, you know, that you get like the forgotten generations, don't you? And then it was always kind of older people, but now it is kind of there's kind of like a middle section, isn't there, of people kind of 50 plus up to like mid 70s, say, that doesn't really get targeted by this sort of stuff. And that's where you've just been saying there, people on statins and what have you. I remember when I went for my medical check many years ago when I was 40, and my cholesterol was fine, all of that. You know, my chance of mortality was like 1.3% or something. If you're less than 10%, it's fine. So that was like background radiation, negligible. But she did say to me, in about 5 years' time, we'll have to start talking about statins, because my actual number is quite high, but my ratio was good and all of that. And I was like, we won't, because I'm a healthy guy as far as I know, you know, and I try to be and all that. So, but the problem with that is, so there will be people on statins, blood pressure tablets, whatever, and there will have been for like 30 years by the time you get in your 50s or 60s, and they can just say, they can have it in their own heads there. So you were talking about the mentality side of it and all of that sort of stuff, and they can be, that is me, but it's not you.
Yeah.
Okay, so like say something like type 1 diabetes or whatever, there's not a lot you can do about that. But if it's like type 2, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, but it's in my family, and it's like, yes, it is in your family, but were your family always healthy? It's like, you know, your body behaves around what you put in your mouth and what you put in your brain. And thoughts you have, so, and that changes how your body reacts to life, doesn't it, and how it reacts, how it shows up. So what you've just said there is brilliant, I think, because people can, it's I suppose it's getting set in your ways, isn't it? You can be like, you can define yourself as that person. I'm fat, I'm out of shape, I'm on blood pressure tablets, I'm on statins, and that's it, that's me forever. Pick up a Saga magazine in a doctor's waiting room and say, why haven't you go to the doctor, why haven't you told me about this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking the NHS or the work of doctors ever, because it's fantastic. But there is so many other options. And you know, it might be that you have to stay on statins, but you can do an awful lot to help yourself. You know? And it doesn't define you, but like you said, people become set in their ways, and actually that applies to everything, not just medically wise, but you know, some women are, I'm just a mum, or I work part-time and I've got the children and whatever, that doesn't define you, you know. It's so much bigger than that, and you just need to kind of open your mind to new experiences and to trying new things, and to sort of see what sticks, what you like, what you enjoy, what you don't. You know, I ran a couple of 10Ks, and I think it was the second one that I had to run, and it was on the beach and it was raining and it all went to mud, and I finished and I thought, you know what, I really, really hate running. I don't know why I'm doing this, but I kind of thought, well, I should try running because everybody's running, so perhaps I should just try. But you know, broaden your horizons, really. And if we can encourage more people to do that, whatever their age, then I think that, you know, us working within the fitness industry, well, then we're doing a good job.
But at least you ran the 10K and then decided you didn't like running. You know what I mean? Because like some people, a lot of people don't like running. Like, have you ever really tried?
You've just said something there, Becky, as well. I just wanted to bring it up because you just said something. And it doesn't hit me hard, but it's like, it just makes me think when people say, I'm like you've just said, I'm just a mum. It's like, that's like the most important job in the world, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like, and then people say, I am just a mum. And it's like, what, all the things you have to do to be that is massive. But people will use it to keep themselves in a box. And it's like, hang on, you're the most important person in your kids' lives, pretty much. So if you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's great. I think we'll start to wrap up. That's a really nice kind of well done, Pete. That's a really nice way to
thank you. I only did it so everyone will say, what a great guy, Pete.
What a lovely guy. Just quickly, I was going to ask Becky, I mean, obviously the website, when it launches in January, later this month, can anyone access it, or is it something you have to be a member of Saga? You have to have a special login, or will anyone be able to go to it and have a read?
Go to it. Anyone can go to it, which is also kind of the joy. I mean, really, what we want is for people to Google, how to start trail running. I don't know, and boom, an article pops up, and you sit and you read it, and you're sort of, you don't necessarily think I am reading an article that is tailored to old people. It's accessible to all, and of course the good thing about that as well is it then takes us global, so there's no kind of limit on who can access what we are writing.
Do you know yet what the actual website is going to be, what people will type in, or
I do, but I'm not allowed to say.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's good advertising, isn't it?
That's really going to help us publicise you. That's brilliant. Okay. Well, when we put this out, and we'll if we're allowed to, we'll put in the link to this website we keep talking about.
I mean, so it's launching when this podcast goes out. It'll be launching in about 3 weeks from there. And I will obviously be putting it all over my socials and stuff because we want traffic. But yeah, because it's kind of still being built and still being put together, they're kind of hesitant on putting it out there. But if you head to the Saga website, you will be signposted towards it, definitely. So yeah.
Okay, excellent. No, that's great. No, I think that sounds great, and hopefully, I'll certainly go and have we'll push it, and we'll all go and have a look and promote that. That's fantastic. Just as we wrap up, Pete, have you got any final thoughts or anything you'd like to say?
Yes.
Oh, yes, you left us on a knife edge, on a cliffhanger.
You said something, and it immediately made me think about this book from 25 odd years ago, a book that I've never read, obviously, but the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, right? There'll be people out there, obviously, who've read that.
Yeah, I've read it. Dr. John Gray, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never read it, right? But your Women Do Cardio, Men Do Weights made me immediately think of that title, and it's like it's like a play on words, and you could put like Women Do Weights, Men Do Cardio, or something like that. You know what I mean? And like just flip it round or whatever. But yeah, I just like immediately made me think of that, and I was like, oh, I'm quite proud of myself there. You've not used it, but it doesn't matter.
It is actually a really good topic to look at, isn't it? Why is that tradition?
Yeah, because obviously it's like the difference between men and women, isn't it? But in fitness, there are obviously differences, but the way you can train doesn't necessarily need to be that different. So
yeah.
Anyway,
another one. Women eat salads, men eat steaks. No, it's true. No, it's true, isn't it? It's one of these things. It's silly, and it's not being sexist at all. It's just a way that people, it's kind of these kind of strange kind of gender defining kind. You know what I mean? It's just way things happen, isn't it? Yeah. No, it's strange. Mr. Paul Bassett, do you have anything you'd like to leave us with?
I'll leave you with something sensible. No, it's just good to have to know that something that the people, that the person writing the articles in a mainstream publication in a major corporation knows what they're talking about, and has a background of actually serious training, so knows what it takes, rather than someone just recommending that you just eat, macchia or something like that to lose weight, or some bizarre thing, whatever's the hot topic. It means that you've got a critical eye. You've probably done a lot of these things, if they work or not, and you can actually communicate them because you've done them. And I think that's quite powerful, and that means they'll be in good hands.
Thank you.
Excellent. No, Becky, it's been really lovely talking to you. It's been really, really lovely conversation. And like we say, we'll as soon as the website's up and running, we'll really give that a good push, and I'll certainly be on there and reading. And I'll be sure to tell Ray, who was the chap reading the Saga magazine in the GP's office, that that there's going to be some good content coming on the online side now as well, which is great. If people do want to, connect with you, follow you, find out more about you and what you do, not just from the writing side, but also the kind of, your own kind of training side and the fitness side, what's the best way for people to do that?
Instagram probably is Workout Woman 1. You'll know if you found me because my logo is very similar to a female superhero who has woman in her name. Same on Facebook. So if you search Workout Woman, you'll find me.
Excellent. So that's just to confirm, that's the Wonder Woman logo we're talking about. If you know what that is. Okay.
Very similar.
Very similar. Okay. But not similar enough for any copyright infringement. Of course. No. Okay, brilliant. Okay, guys, thank you so much again. That's been the first episode. That's been episode 123, the first episode of 2023 of the Health Oddity podcast. Thank you again, Becky, for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Paul Bassett. Thank you, Mr. Peter Lant. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review on iTunes or Spotify. And also, if you'd like to join the Facebook group, just go into groups on Facebook, type in Health Oddity, you'll find us, click on join, and one of us will let you in. We will see you next week, where we will be joined by Mr. Brooks Kubik from America, the author of Dinosaur Training and over 30 books on strength training. And we'll be back next week with Brooks. So until next time, take care, guys. See you later.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com, or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Oddity.